And remember, you're being televised. Okay, Michael Deering, take it away.
Hi, I'm Michael Deering. I marketing at Stanford in the design school. I mainly teach engineering students how to turn their technology ideas into products. And the other half of my time, or 3/4 of my time, I spend working with small companies, most of whom I invest in. I started that about 3 years ago when I left eBay. I've been at eBay for, I guess, like 7 years. And started doing it individually on my own for a while, and then decided that I really liked it so well that I would pool together some money from other people as well as my own and try to do it a little bit more full-time. And so that's what I've been doing. And what I wanted to do, I missed the first part, so I hope I stay somehow into the groove of things. But I brought 2 books that I actually used in class. And I just taught some from these books about a week ago. And there's 2 of the most beautiful paragraphs in the English language in these books, and I thought they were actually pretty appropriate for the topic today. So I wanted to read them to you, and just, I'll try to speak clearly, but I think you'll get it. I think you'll understand why these are appropriate. And then that's it. That's all I have. So I'll probably give you back some time. This first book is called Orbiting the Giant Hairball, and it's about creativity and innovation inside complex organizations. And the fellow who wrote it, Gordon McKenzie, he's dead now, but when he was alive, he was the head of creative services for Hallmark Cards. And so he wrote this book as a sort of memoir about what it was like to try to innovate inside complex systems. And at the very end of the book, he gives sort of this parting wisdom to the reader. And to a student, every student that I've assigned this book to has come back and said, wow, that was some heavy-duty stuff in the last few pages. So I thought I'd read to you about half a page from it. It's I think, terrific. He starts out talking about what it's like at the beginning of your life, and he happens to say God hands you a blank canvas, which is your life. You can think of it as fate or whoever you believe in, or whatever you believe in. But you're handed a pristine canvas. You roll it up, tuck it under your arm, and head off on your journey. This is the beginning of your life. When you come out, some doctor or nurse looks down at you in amazement and gasps, "Look, this kid's carrying a rolled-up artist canvas." Knowing that you do not yet have the skills to do anything meaningful with the canvas, the big people take it away from you and give it to society for safekeeping until you've acquired the prescribed skills and requisite talents to earn the canvas's return. While society's holding this property of yours, it can't resist the temptation to unroll the canvas and draw pale blue lines and little blue numbers all over its virgin surface. Eventually, the canvas is returned to you, its rightful owner. However, it now carries the implied message that if you just paint inside the numbers, inside the lines, and paint with the numbers, follow these instructions of the little blue numbers, your life will be a masterpiece, and that is a lie. And I read this about 5 years ago, or 3.5 years ago, and just thought that was really powerful because I had unfortunately spent about, at that time, I don't know, 30-some-odd years, filling in paint by numbers of what I was supposed to do with my career, and it turned out that wasn't actually a really good idea at all. So I feel that a lot of why I got into this is because of this, because I want to save other young kids from going through the mistake of thinking paint by numbers is right, and helping them have the courage to pick up their canvas and paint on it the way they want to. And I have the time and the passion to do that, and so that's why I picked this as a second career. The second thing I wanted to read, which is actually something I read probably about 20 years ago, is from a book called Capitalism, Socialism, and Democracy, which is kind of a heavy title, but it's by my favorite economist. His name is Joseph Schumpeter. And Schumpeter is very famous for a bunch of things, but this paragraph is maybe one of the reasons why he's best known in the history of economics. He's writing in 1942, believe it or not, and the chapter is called Can Capitalism Survive? The opening up of new markets, foreign or domestic, and the organizational development from the craft shop to factory to such concerns as U.S. Steel illustrate the same process of industrial mutation. He says, if I may use that biological term, that incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one, incessantly creating a new one. This process of creative destruction is the essential fact about capitalism. It's what capitalism consists in and what every capitalist concern has got to live in. You probably have heard the term creative destruction before. I had, but I didn't know what it meant until I read Schumpeter. And this is the second main reason why I think doing this for a living, or at least part-time, is so much fun, because you actually get to, you get to plant the TNT charges around the old way of doing things, and you get to actually stand back with a group of really smart people and press the button and see what happens. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes really cool stuff. So creative destruction and your life is a canvas. That's and the canvas belongs to you, not anybody else. That's really what I wanted to do. Was that completely off base, or?
So I'll try to be pretty short to the point. I wasn't as qualified to do angel investing as anybody in this room. I wouldn't have been invited to this session when I first moved out to California. So you've all got a huge head start on where I was circa this time 4 years ago. In fact, I was so afraid I didn't know what I was doing when I moved. I moved here from Austin, Texas, after having been involved in 2 startups down there. That I just said, I'm going to visit with 100 investors in 100 days and just learn everything I can. So what I thought I'd do is just share the best pieces of advice that I got from those folks, and then maybe some of it will be useful to you in your travels. The first is the number 12, and 12 is the minimum number for statistical diversification. So what I decided to do when I first got here was figure out how much money I wanted to invest over the course of 12 quarters. And I basically decided $25,000 per quarter. And I was going to do 1 deal per quarter. And if I got involved in something awesome before that, it was more attributable to randomness and luck than to whether I was a good investor. And I would assert the same to everybody in this room. If you're not prepared to do 12 investments, get comfortable with the idea that you're going to Vegas and just doing it for fun. And that's okay. That's a valid reason to be an angel. But if you think you're in it for the money, or making money should at least be an option, I would recommend figuring out an amount to spend over the course of 3 years, divide it by 12, and do that much every quarter. The other thing that does is it protects you from your own emotions. Sometimes the market's overpriced, sometimes it's frothy. And what you don't want to do is do a bunch of dumb overpriced deals in the good times when everybody else is doing dumb overpriced deals. At the same time, right now, a bunch of people are in the fetal position, and it's actually a great time to invest. And so what you don't want to do is, when everybody's in the fetal position, be just like them and have a bunch of toxic waste dumps to clean that you shouldn't have invested in, in the good times. So time diversification and 12 deals, I think, was the first really important thing that I learned. The second thing is 15 plus or minus 3. That's the number of $100 million companies created in Silicon Valley per year, give or take. And one of the things I decided was that startups are hard, there's a lot of inertia in the world, and what really makes it fun in life and being involved in the tech business is to be involved with those 15 plus or minus 3. And it's easy to get caught up in, this is the hot trend of the month, everybody else is excited about it, you better rush quickly to fund it or you're going to lose out. But if you can't convince yourself that if everything goes right, it's not going to be one of the 15 plus or minus 3, I'm not sure it's worthy of your time. I think that the fun of it is being involved in the great things that really make a difference. The third thing that I learned was this book called Fooled by Randomness, which I recommend everybody read. It's by a guy named Taylor, who's written before The Black Swan. I actually think it's a better book. And it was funny for me in just thinking about how I invested and what's the role of randomness and chance, and not to over-attribute things in my own abilities. A couple of other things. It's one thing to be a builder. It's another thing to be a buyer. Most of the people in this room have gotten where they are by being good builders, and the failure mode of that is that when you see a startup, you think about what you would do to make it better. And the fact of the matter is, if you're lucky, you can do slightly more than wire them the money. And, if you're not willing to wire them just the money, if you're not willing to run that thought experiment, you should really second guess whether you should invest. Because in the end, great investors are better buyers than they are builders. I mean, it's an unfortunate fact of life, but it is a fact. And some of the good VCs, they're damn good buyers, and they don't worry about what they would do to make the company better. They worry about what the person they're about to give the money to is going to do to make the company better. And that skill is art, and it's mastered over time. It's not an easy skill to reverse polarities, to go from one to the other, because they're almost inversely correlated. Just the last thought that I'll leave you with, and this is actually something that I learned after investing, is what I call Ocean's 11 teams. So I may disagree slightly with what some have said. I do believe that angels should be decisive, but I also believe that awesome angel syndicate groups make a big difference. And so, for example, when I invested in Dig, it was exciting to me to co-invest with Ron Conway and Reid Hoffman and Mark Andreessen, because I cared about what Reid Hoffman thought about Dig, whether it was a good deal or not. And similar with Twitter, right? A lot of the people in that company were good investors who had good insights about the consumer internet. And so, if I'm looking at an open source deal, I think it's perfectly reasonable to say, hey, I wonder what Larry Augustin thinks about that deal. And I'm doing the entrepreneur a favor, theoretically, by introducing them to Larry Augustin. I'm not just being an indecisive wuss. I'm trying to help add value to the company by getting the best possible group. And that's why I call it Ocean's 11. You know, Ocean's 11 had the guy that picks the safe, and the guy that blows things up, and the guy that, well, I don't know what Brad Pitt did. Right? But the point of the matter is that Ocean's 11 teams with a proper balance of skills and prestige in the industry can add not just style but substance to the company. And also, I want to know if those smart people want to invest before I make a decision. And so particularly if it's not a full-time job for you, the ability to bond yourself to these Ocean's 11 teams, I think, is a good set of qualifying questions and thought processes that sort of give you a second pair of eyes and ears and a better perspective. So that's about all I have to say about that. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Ariel Kohler. So I think of myself as an accidental angel in that back in '94 I started an internet company and there were not too many of those. So just by the fortunate of being out there, it was high profile, and I started to get lots of people in '95 and '96, oh, you're an internet expert because you've been doing it for a year or two, to get my advice. And so I spent a lot of my time, particularly young people. I went to Stanford, so some of the alumni and so on. And some of them, I really liked what they were doing. And I didn't have a lot of money to invest, but I said, well, I like what you were doing, so when you do your round, maybe I can put $10,000 or something like that. So I did a few of those, a company called Nexta, a company called Digital Impact, a company called Aptimus. They worked out pretty well. I said, well, this angel investing thing is actually kind of good. So as I kept meeting people, and if I met somebody that I was impressed by, that I liked what they were doing, then I would give them a little bit of money. That was, again, that's over time. It has evolved to where the past few years I almost do it full time. I don't quite do it full time, and what happened after my first company was that, and it's interesting, I think Naval was talking about the boards being, I forgot the term you used. I actually haven't.
Time.
But that waste of time. So I'll disagree with that. I think boards can be a waste of time. They can be terrible. I actually think good board can be incredibly valuable. My first company, I had some awesome outside board members, some awesome investor board members. I got a lot of value, and one of my board members, who was in a bunch of other great boards, and he also ran an ad agency, he said, I wish I could be a full-time board member. I said, that's an interesting idea. So when I left my first company, I said, let me try what Dave suggested. I don't have a lot of money to invest, so I couldn't become a full-time angel at the time. And I looked around, and through all these people that I was meeting for advice, actually I found 3 that I told them, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a day a week of my time. So that's not your typical board member, I call it, right? Give me some equity in exchange because I don't have money to give you, and I'll help you out, given that I have 2 more years or 3 more years of internet experience than you do. And I did that for those 3 companies, and for 2 years I split my time between them, and that worked out pretty well. So that's a model that actually I have continued, and since then I tend to spend about a third of my time. I like to have, it's different now. I have usually just one of those at a time where I'll be active board members. So just I did that for HANA Software, which was enterprise. More recently I did it for StumbleUpon. Currently I'm doing it for another company called Lola. And to me, that again, that's a different model. The model it's evolved as well because it's good what